Today we've got a full in-depth review for you on this guy, the Tamron 24mm F2.8. As usual, we're breaking down everything that's important to help you decide whether or not you should be considering this lens. Let's get started. Welcome back, guys, and today we're checking out the Tamron 24mm F2.8. This is a newer lineup from Tamron that includes several fast prime lenses that are a bit surprising, and they are a fantastic price point. Here's some specs to get you going on this particular lens, and if you haven't seen one of my videos before, my name's Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news reviews and tutorials, so if you do enjoy this video and it helps you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and joining the community. And guys, having said that, let's dive right into our first category, which is the build and features. Okay, so let's dive in and have a quick look at an unboxing as well as the build and features of this lens. And I almost forgot to answer who this lens was for. It's not a professional lens. You can find this in a beginner or a intermediates bag. This is a great lens, but there are going to be some things that are a bit concerning when it comes to professional work. And we'll get into that, but as far as what's in the box, you get some paperwork, you get a lens hood, and the lens. This lens is going to be very similar in look and feel to the 20mm and the 35mm that was also released with this lens, as well as the 28-75 and the 17-28. Tamron has done a great job at keeping the build relatively consistent and not sacrificing too much, which allows them to keep the price reasonable. It weighs less than half a pound, measures only 3 3/4 inches long with the lens hood installed and 2.5 without. A great size and weight. The electronically coupled focus ring turns easily and smoothly. On the front, you'll find 67mm filter threads, which is relatively consistent with all Tamron's newer releases. One aspect of this lens that I don't care for is its moving front element. Although it doesn't protrude past the lens itself, it does have me a little bit worried about long-term dust and moisture resistance. On the back, you'll find a sturdy metal mount as well as a very welcome little rubber gasket, which is great to see on a lens of this value. Overall, this lens's build is decent. It is a plastic or composite material, and it doesn't have any bells or whistles. Pretty much what you'd expect of something in this price range. I give it 3.5 stars. So when it comes to value, if you ask me, this thing's got tons of it. With an MSRP of only $349 US, currently on sale for $300 US, this thing packs tons of value. A close comparable would be the Samyang 24mm 2.8, but it's not as sharp and doesn't have the macro capabilities. Keep in mind we've got the newer 20mm f1.8 as well as the 24G Master, but those are going to come at a hefty price tag. If this lens isn't quite wide enough for you, Tamron's also released the 20mm f2.8, which is pretty much this lens, just 20mm. I also have a full in-depth review on that lens as well as a comparison between the two, so make sure you check those out. But as far as value is concerned, we do have some options available, but this thing's a lot of fun and a great price, and because of that, I give it 4.5 stars. So looking at the performance of this 24mm lens, it's actually batting way out of its league. Now, it's not perfect by any means, but it does have some features that I enjoy. Let's have a look at the autofocus. Now, I will tell you that it's better for stills than for video. It does suffer from some focus breathing, and the autofocus does have some noise and isn't the fastest. However, it's more than capable for most situations, and I find it a little bit more smooth and accurate compared to the 20mm. Probably my favorite feature of this lens is its close minimum focus distance and its 1:2 macro reproduction capability. For me, the more versatile the better, and this thing just seems to do it all. Now admittedly, 24mm is not my favorite focal length, but the versatility of this lens and the macro capabilities make this thing just so much fun to use. It's also, as you can see, incredibly sharp, especially into the center, and we'll get into a bit of the distortion and whatnot here in a second, but overall, this is a great lens for me. So let's talk focal length for a second here, guys. And this is 24 millimeters. I'm filming on it right now. A really crisp and clear, very sharp lens in the center with some distortion issues on the edges. And we'll get into that as well. But for now, I just wanted to show you a comparison between this popular lens and maybe the 20 millimeter the Tamron also has to show you the differences. So check those out. And again, this lens is going to be great for landscapes, for environmental portraits, and kind of just overall street photography, having fun in that kind of regard. And hopefully this might give you an idea about which one's going to work better for you. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the sharpness and optics of this lens. I'm happy to say that this lens is incredibly sharp, even wide open at f2.8, and its sharpest probably being about f8. Now, obviously this lens does suffer from some distortion, as you can see here, and that's really the biggest issue I have with this lens, I'd have to say. It's not nearly as bad as the 20 millimeter, but it's still recognizably bad. Now you can clean it up with profile correction, but you're not going to get the best corners after you do that, so ultimately you're going to have to rely on the sharpness in the center, and for me, and I think most people, that's not that big of a deal, but again, for a relatively inexpensive lens, optically, it's quite good. Now as far as vignetting is concerned, it does control it quite well. You can see a little bit here at f2.8, stop down to f4 to see that pretty much completely removed. As far as chromatic aberrations are concerned, you can find it in some situations, especially in the corners, but for the most part, again, really well controlled. And talking optically as a whole, this lens is fantastic for the price. When talking about the bokeh of this lens, it's actually quite nice. It is a fast f2.8, but only has a 7-blade aperture. But it's quite nice wide open, and especially if you're using the macro capabilities. Overall for performance, it's quite good for what it is and definitely for the price. If you can get past the autofocus noise and the distortion, it's quite a good lens. I give it 4 stars. Wrapping up, guys, my overall feelings and thoughts of this lens are fairly good. It's fantastically sharp with just a few issues that can easily be overlooked when you consider the price. As always, here's my personal pros and cons for this lens. Now rating this lens as a whole, I think I made my thoughts relatively clear. I like this lens, and I think you will too, and I give it 4 stars. And if you're a subscriber, you also know that I like to rate things on a scale from never think about again to consider to definitely buy. And if you're in the market for an inexpensive, fast, wide prime lens, or specifically 24 millimeters, and you're not doing a heck of a lot of video work, well, I'd definitely consider this one. Well, there it is, guys. That's my review of the Tamron 24mm F2.8. I hope you liked this video and it helped you out, and if it did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. If you want to pick this lens up, I'll drop affiliate links down there below for you as well. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.